Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second installment of our virtual tasting series. Tonight we have Secret Society on deck. The plan was to do our 2018 vintage, which we're going to do, but a number of people reached out to me and asked if we could do the 17 as well, because lots of them have the 17 in their cellar. So we're going to do two wines tonight. Before we get started, though, we're going to give people a few minutes to join the webinar, or sorry, the tasting. So what I thought I'd do in the meantime is to take you guys through what we do with our barrels. So we do barrel fermentations and aging on both our Semillon and our Pinot Blanc. And I'm going to stir the lees in one of the barrels and kind of show you what, and explain to you guys what's happening as that's going on. So when we ferment in barrels, through the process of fermentation, the yeast cells die off as they get converted to alcohol. And those dead yeast cells settle down at the bottom of the barrel. And what stirring the lees means is to actually get into the barrel, stir up all that settled out material, and so it gets resuspended in the solution of the wine. The reason we do that is it helps enhance flavors, and it also helps build texture and body and volume to the wine. So I've got a barrel of our 2019 Pinot Blanc, and I'll start first by pulling out a sample of our unstirred wine. I'll just set that here for a second. And now I'm going to use our bâtonnage stick. Bâtonnage is the French word for stirring the lees. So we put this in to the barrel, stir it around, try and get all the stuff that's settled at the bottom of the barrel resuspended into the wine. So after we did our primary fermentation on the Pinot Blanc, we wrapped the wine off of most of the lees. So we took some of the lees out and left some in the barrels. So if this was done right after fermentation, you would notice a much more significant contrast between the unstirred and the stirred. And there we go. So I'll come a little bit closer to the camera here. So this is the unstirred barrel, Pinot Blanc, and this one here has been stirred. So you can see it's a little bit cloudier than the unstirred version. So that's what we do with our barrels, and we do that every 2 weeks throughout the aging period until the wines are ready for bottling. Okay. So on to tonight's main event, tasting of our Secret Society. I'll give you a little bit of context for how this wine came about. This was the very first wine that we ever made as a winery, and our first vintage of Secret Society was 2014. The inspiration for this wine is really, well, it's twofold. By not disclosing the blend on the bottle, it gives me the ultimate flexibility as a winemaker to change the blend up year in, year out, which I actually do, and which is actually part of the fun part on it. The other thing is it allows me to achieve the same style of wine each year without being married to a particular blend. And with Secret Society, what we're looking for is a blend that's always going to be made with aromatic white varietals. So it's got a nice pungent nose. We want this wine to be crisp, so refreshing on the palate, great acidity, and we want it to be dry or dry-ish. We do generally leave a little bit of residual sugar in this wine after fermentation, but in no way is it a sweet wine. It's not even technically an off-dry wine, but it just adds a little bit more body and character and flavor to the wine. Sorry, let's crack these. 2018. And then for those of you that have the 2017, we'll pour that one as well. Yeah, so you can see both of these vintages are very, very similar in how they appear in the glass. Brilliant color, clear, very similar sort of golden hue to them. Now let's start with the 18. Yeah, so lots of tropical fruit on Secret Society, and again, that's one of the hallmarks of this wine, year in, year out. So it's aromatic varietals that really, really burst out of the glass. And as I described before, on the palate, you're getting the crispness, that really bright, vibrant Okanagan acidity. The fruit is definitely fruit forward. We don't have any wines that go into the blend of Secret Society. None of them have spent any time in barrel, so it's all super clean, fresh wine. Very, very juicy, and the texture it's got almost an oiliness, a viscosity to it, which adds some weight and body to the wine. Yeah, so lots of lychee, pineapple, a little bit of yellow apple. Really delicious. I'm not going to talk about the blend yet, so let's hop over to the 2017. Again, it's got that same characteristic nose to it, that sort of exotic fruit flavor. A little more reserved than the 2018. The 18's popping out of the glass a little bit more. It's a younger vintage, so there's more vibrant fruit for sure. And again, it's that hallmark Secret Society feel in your mouth. Nice body, nice weight. I'd say there's a little bit more residual sugar that we carried in the 2017 relative to the 18. So it's got a slightly sweeter finish to it. But as I said before, technically these are both dry wines. All right, blends. If you guys have any ideas on what the blends are, why don't you use the comment section now and see if you can start guessing some of these varietals. For those of you who've been following this wine for a while, you'll know right away that sort of consistent backbone of this blend. It's still the same in both of these vintages. But with our 2018, I'll give you guys a bit of a hint. There is a fourth varietal in the 2018 vintage that has not been used in the past. And I'll tell you that one because many of you guys wouldn't know about this. But it includes a white grape called Bacchus, which is included in our home vineyard here in Kaleden. Now Bacchus, if you're not familiar with that grape, it's got pretty cool lineage to it. It's a crossing between Riesling and Sylvaner. Both of those varietals were combined, I don't know, about 100 years ago to make a grape called Ehrenfelser. And then they crossed Ehrenfelser with Müller-Thurgau. So all these sort of Alsatian Germanic whites that are super aromatic, amazing depth of flavors and aromas. And they rolled those three together and created a white grape called Bacchus. And there's none of that in our 17. Do we have any comments coming in? Oh, come on guys, you gotta take a guess here. It's supposed to be interactive.
Karen Chapman has said Gewürztraminer.
Yes, Gewürztraminer. So that is the core, and it has been since day one. That is the primary varietal in our blends, and fairly dominant, more so in our 17 than in the 18. The 17, it's about 65% Gewürztraminer. In our 18 blend, with the introduction of Bacchus, which has some very similar characteristics, we ratcheted down the Gewürztraminer to about 40-45%.
Another guess of Petit Verdot?
No Petit Verdot, but we definitely would find that, that's a red grape. We definitely have lots of Petit Verdot in our syndicate blend. So not in Secret Society.
Pinot Gris.
Okay, no Pinot Gris, but when we pour this wine at tastings, we have the two most common guesses we would get would be Pinot Gris, and more again in that Alsatian style rather than a Northern Italian Pinot Grigio style. So Pinot Gris, common guess, not in it. And the second most common guess would be Viognier. And again, some fairly similar fruit profiles that you would experience in the Viognier relative to Secret Society. And very similar texture. Viogner's got that oily viscosity to it as well. But again, not a drop of Viognier in either of these blends. I'll spill the secret for you guys in case you're really on the edge of your seat here. In our 2017, we have Sauvignon Blanc and Muscat. So the whole rationale behind the blend of the Gewürztraminer, the Sauvignon Blanc, and the Muscat is to bring the best of each of those varietals together into the blend. So Gewürztraminer, super exotic flavors and aromas, and it brings to it that richness in texture and that oiliness in texture, but it's got relatively little acid in it. Muscat, at only 15%, really lifts the aromatics. It's a super pungent grape, beautiful floral aromas. And then the Sauvignon Blanc is here it's more of a structural component than anything. You can taste it if you really were to peel through the layers, but what it's really bringing is that acidity, that crispness to the blend. When we go into the 2018, it's the premise behind the blend is the same. It's to bring the best of all those four varietals and put them into a wine that makes it sort of an elevated experience. So with the Gewürztraminer, we're still using that for that exotic flavor and the texture, but with the introduction of Bacchus, we're bringing a little bit more acidity into the blend through that varietal, and really vibrant, more citrusy type note flavor expressions. And then at 16% Muscat, we're still using that fairly dominant blend component to really lift the aromatics. And then the fourth component is still Sauvignon Blanc, but it's at a much lower percent. And again, that's more for the acidity rather than the flavor itself. So there you have it. Secrets out of the bag. Please don't tell anyone. It's the best kept secret that's not really kept. Okay, so a couple of things on food pairings. As with most of our wines, we tend to assemble our wines with the dinner table, kind of at the forefront of our minds. For us, food and wine go together hand in hand. We rarely have one without the other. Maybe breakfast, but so with Secret Society, because it's got acid and it's got a little bit of sweetness, it's got some body, it's got great flavors. It's actually quite versatile with lots of different types of foods. You can't say that about lots of wines, but particularly this one. If you were going to have a fresh market salad with with some mixed greens and some prawns on top, or some chicken with a vinaigrette, this wine stands up to a vinaigrette style dressing without being overpowered by it. It's great with a lot of softer, riper cheeses as well. I would tend to lean more to the milder side on the cheese. Anything too bitter on the cheese side will definitely overpower this wine. And seafood, fish and seafood. This is definitely the best match for it. Lobster, prawns, crab, anything that's got richness to it. The weight of this wine can definitely stand up to that. So yeah, experiment. Get your hands in a bottle and try it and share what you guys find is working. Okay, so that's it for Secret Society. One of the feedback points we got from last week's tasting was to actually incorporate a Q&A session in. So if you guys have any questions, please start feeding them through. Michelle's behind the camera here, and she'll watch for them. So if you guys have any questions about the wines, about how we make them, why we do things, about anything actually, it doesn't have to be about this wine, just start feeding those through.
One question is, how do you decide each year what the varietals in Secret Society will be?
So it happens in two ways. I'll be upfront and say this isn't a kitchen sink wine. This isn't the type of wine that we assemble at the end once we have everything else left over. There are many white blends that end up in that realm, but Secret Society is not one of those wines. It's a purpose-built wine that's designed with a very specific profile in mind. We have the same consistent varietals year in, year out. And so this will continue to incorporate Gewürztraminer, Bacchus, and Muscat for sure. The Sauvignon Blanc, which we produce for our collusion blend, we'll use that if we need to get that acidity. But so much that really depends on the growing season and how much acid is left in the grapes when they're ready for harvest. That's the tricky part about picking when you actually harvest your grapes is that balance between sugar ripeness and acidity. They tend to work in opposite directions. So as your fruit gets riper, the acid is coming out of the berries. So if we end up in a position like that where the Gewürztraminer and the Bacchus, they're all really ripe and low acid, we'll bring in some acid from Sauvignon Blanc.
Next question is, what cheese would you pair with it?
So I would pair a mild brie style cheese, a soft ripened cheese. Things like Cave-aged Gruyere is actually quite good because there's a nuttiness in that cheese that pairs really well with the sweetness in Secret Society. And if you're looking for some really good cheeses, I'll put a little plug in here for our friend Sandra at Terroir Cheese. She's a local cheesemaker that we did an offering with back in January, February. Great local cheesemaker. We're all about supporting local, and she's based out of Kelowna and Salmon Arm. So terroircheese.ca, check her out.
Where can you buy Secret Society in Vancouver?
There's quite a few stores that carry it. Most of the Save-On stores actually in and around the Lower Mainland have Secret Society. And what we'll do is we'll update our website with the current listings of stores. There's quite a few in Vancouver in particular. So it's tough to round off a list now, but we will update our website to make sure that information is available for you.
What's going on at the vineyard right now? What kind of work? Okay,
so we are now coming up to the end of March, and we are in the final stages of pruning our vines. It's the process that we go through every year to kind of rejuvenate the vines. We do cane pruning at our vineyard, which means we actually cut back about 90% of last year's growth. And so what we're doing is we're basically renewing the parts of the vine that are going to produce the shoots and the clusters of fruit, and getting that all cleaned up and tied down to our trellis system. Maybe that'll be a good subject for a future live event. Thanks.
Mike Harrington wanted to know if the wines tasted better last year because of the hot guy driving the tractor.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we get a lot of friends of them that come out and pitch in around here, which is awesome. And everything that touches the grapes from when they start growing right through to when they're into the bottle, I guess in some way or another imparts a particular character to it. So maybe this one does have a little bit of Mike in it. Great. Okay, well, thanks for the questions. Next week, I've just got a quick lineup here showing what we have on tap. Next week is our 2017 Syrah. The week after, which is, I guess, the 9th, I think, of April, we're going to be doing our white blend called Collusion. This is our take on a white Bordeaux style wine, so it's a blend of Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon. And then 3 weeks from now, we are going to be doing our freshly bottled Omerta Rosé. We bottled this past Saturday, so it's now in its sort of post-bottling resting period. This is a stunning wine, and I can't wait for you guys to get your hands on it. We are offering this on our website now on a pre-release sale price of $22. It'll be $24 when it gets released. And these will ship out in early April. This wine is 100% Syrah. It's a direct press style rosé, which is how they make wines generally in Provence. Dry, crisp, super vibrant fruit, really juicy. Can't wait for you guys to try it. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you guys for joining, and hope you guys will tune in next Thursday, same time. And if you have any other questions or comments, please reach out to us. Cheers.